competitive character, all of those things. So, like you said, it's not one that you predict will necessarily have a chance to get. You knew the price was going to be, really high, and but he's a guy that we think is a great fit for us, and does so many good things on and off the court for us.
Brad, you talked earlier in the offseason about needing to rebalance when you got Kristaps. Now, is the balance okay with you now? Do you need to continue? Do you need to do more to get the balance that you're looking for backcourt and front court?
Yeah, I mean, we'll continue to look at it. We'll see how it all looks. I think we've had the real benefit of watching a packed gym for the last few weeks, in small groups, and some open gyms that guys have played. And we've been really encouraged and impressed by some of the people that people don't talk about on our team, and a lot. And so we'll see how that all plays itself out. But yeah, we talked about trying to balance that. I think Jrue becoming available obviously wasn't something that was predicted. And we thought about it not only in terms of however Joe decides to start the game, but certainly how the end of the game would look, and who we can put out there. And you just couldn't pass on an opportunity to get a guy like Jrue. But yeah, we will continue to look at the best balance for our team. I do think that we'll still play some double bigs. The nice part is that Kristaps can play with any of our bigs. Al can play with any of our bigs, and go from there. But we'll watch for a couple weeks and continue to gauge it.
And with the new CBA, now you guys are a second apron team, but we know that all of the rules haven't kicked in yet.
Right.
So was the fact that those rules haven't kicked in yet, does that make you kind of more go for it now this season versus maybe taking a longer term approach? Is this kind of like, because of the rules, does it make you push more all in right now?
Well, I think first of all, this speaks to our ownership's willingness to spend regardless, right? And our eagerness to be the best possible team we can be. All of those discussions, without getting too far into weighing the here versus now, John, all of those discussions have been like endless since the new CBA came out, right? And so, those are things that we've hashed back and forth over and over and over, and have been prepared for any scenario. Certainly we all have to be mindful of and make good decisions as we move forward.
Brad, how difficult was it to move on from Rob in this trade?
Yeah, really hard. I've said this to our staff today. Like, those phone calls are, I'll probably be like somewhere else in 10 years hiding, right? Those are like the hardest phone calls. Rob, it was such a pleasure to watch Rob grow. When he first got here, he had a long way to go. But he had a great attitude. He was a great teammate. And got a lot better, over time. I know Portland's super excited to get him. And that was hard. It was really hard. Guys like Jrue Holiday are the only reason you ever entertain, moving on from a guy like Rob. That's really tough.
I know Malcolm, a lot of conversations after, nearly being traded there earlier in the summer, kind of bringing him back in, moving on from him, and just those conversations over the summer. How did that process go, and end up him included in the trade?
Malcolm had to be included in the trade because of the money aspect of how these trades work, right? But I've talked about it before. Malcolm had every right to be frustrated with us in the middle of the summer. That said, I was not concerned with regard to if media day started today and Jrue Holiday didn't become available, that he was going to be a professional, because that's what he is. he's a good guy. He's a good teammate, and he understands the business aspect of this. And so, I think he'll do really well as well. He feels good. He's ready to roll, and we're thankful for the year he had with us.
Like a week ago, you were probably pretty certain that you were going to go to camp with one team. What was your reaction when Holiday got traded to Portland and you kind of realized, okay, this guy might be available? And then how urgent were you to go get him at that point? And how did things progress from that initial excitement by you that maybe he's free to then the trade?
As time went on, I think we all became a little bit more wondering if Portland was going to end up getting somebody that they would then move on from as a result of getting moving Dame. And so we had we were monitoring it like the rest of the league. To be candid, we knew kind of the numbers that had to match. So you had a list of guys that might be in those type of deals that you might be interested. So you have to stay flexible and ready and all that. I think that when it became Jrue, it was like, it's never ideal timing right before training camp. But at the same time, this is a guy that you want on your team whenever you can get him.
Final couple questions, Jerry?
Brad, with Jrue, you paid a substantial price, like multiple picks, important players. Most of the trades you've made so far, it was generally like one pick or like one player. So what made you want to go this deep into like this big of a trade? And is this something you've been kind of preparing for, or was it going that deep into a trade was something that kind of caught you guys by surprise?
Got to pay a good price for things, right? Like, that's the way it goes. We're trying to win a championship, trying to be as good as we can be. We certainly did, and 2 picks and 2 good players, and that is a real price. And but that's how good we think Jrue is, and we're still in pretty good shape from the standpoint of what we can do moving forward with picks. I mean, we've got a ton of seconds now, and I think we can still move a couple of firsts, and we have control of all of our firsts with the exception of the swap in 28 and the 29. So, we're here to try to be as good as we can be.
Rob, then Steve.
Brad, you were talking about a little bit earlier, but the roster situation now in the front court, obviously losing a big piece in Rob. How are you satisfied with what you guys have there now? Are you looking continually to add there, either now or during the season? What's your kind of viewpoint on that with like what you guys have for assets?
Well, I think you can all look at our team and identify like we're really strong right at the top, and so as you look at how you figure out who's going to accentuate those guys, we're just looking for guys that are reliable, skilled, and competitive. And so at any position, that's what we need to fill, those other spots in the rest of those minutes. And like I said, whether it was from, our smaller guys to our bigger guys that we've watched now for, several weeks in group workouts and those type of things, I believe in the guys that have been in the gym. And, I think that, we will continue to try to monitor and see what we need to add. But, we're looking forward to really now stepping back and evaluating it. Okay, let's see how it all fits together. Let's see what we need. We are obviously mindful of, if you have an injury or two, where our biggest needs might be. But, I'm encouraged by what we have and how they've worked and everything else. And, and been really encouraged by Kristaps' first couple weeks here. He's played and worked out every day for 2 weeks. And so we're looking forward to getting started.
Final question, Steve.
How soon do you expect Jrue to be here, and what do you see about his fit alongside Derek and the Jays, and how excited are you about the possibilities of those lineups?
Jrue beat me to the gym this morning. He's not allowed to do anything until all the physicals on both sides pass, right? So I don't know when that will officially be. It depends on when they finish theirs and when we finish ours. He'll go through all the physical stuff today, but he'll watch practice until he's allowed to practice. But he's eager, and just getting a chance to spend a few minutes on the phone with him last night, and then a few minutes with him today. It's just he's a really impressive person, and so we're glad he's here.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Quick note for the still photons and for the videographers, we are going to plan to walk you across the street at probably around noon for anyone who wants to get some footage of like the marketing stations and stuff. If you're looking for visuals that are outside of just press conference, so we'll do that a little bit later on.
Yes. Hi. Yeah. Pretend this conversation did not happen. Gio's basically taking over for me. Yeah, because I have to pass the mic now, so I'm like not really.
Oh! Bobby, I heard you want us to do a training camp for the media next year. All right, be careful what you ask for. We're going to do it, though. It's a good idea. All right.
Questions for Joe? B-Rob?
Hey, Joe. Obviously, a first full summer planning for everything here, and then pretty big trade for you yesterday. Your thoughts on Jrue and just how, if anything, changes for you heading into the season there from a planning perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think things will change a little bit from the beginning. Obviously going into the offseason and most of the preseason having a general idea of what the roster is, and then, changing it a little bit. But I think it's changed for good. I think both were good. I think the roster before and the roster now is good. And so just more focusing on each guy's strengths. And obviously Jrue has high character, plays with a great mindset, and has the reputation, of being a tough defender and somebody that can really change the game on both ends of the floor. So just looking to plug that into, kind of the roster that we have.
Joe, I know it just happened and you've got to go through camp and see, but have you given any thought initially to how you might start the games? Would you go with Jrue and Derek in the backcourt, or would you go, double big?
Yeah, I mean, we put thought into that. I think with the roster that we have and the season, I thought something that was good for us last year was our ability to go back and forth of double big and playing small. And so put thought into it. Haven't really come across kind of what the best way to go about that is yet. But I want to be as open-minded as we can, knowing we have a lot of flexibility, in the backcourt and in the front court.
Joe, after spending the whole offseason just learning from last year, evaluating, I guess, what are some of the lessons and things you've grown over this summer?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton, right? And I think we'll be able to talk more about those, as the season goes on, saying like, hey, this is what I thought about that last year, and this is kind of how we're approaching it this year. But there's been so many. Initially, I would say, the differentiating between the beginning of the season, middle of the season, so how you kind of navigate different points of the season. And I think there's always going to be ups and downs. I think each part of the season has a theme to it. And just going back and say, okay, here's why we were this the first 20 games of the year. Here's why we were this at the middle of the season. What were we like post All-Star break? What were we like the last 20 games of the season? What were we like heading into the postseason? How do we handle each round of the postseason? And so just really trying to develop a mindset and a perspective throughout each journey of our season, knowing that we have to, get better every single day and just kind of handle when things go your way and when they don't go your way. So just really excited to have the data available from last year and then being able to pull and apply that when necessary. And then at the same time, being able to just reinvent and, express myself as a coach and then allow a space for our team to express who they are and then create a shared identity, create shared ownership, and a shared vision for where we want to be towards the end of the year.
Joe in the middle, 3 rows back. Obviously, as Brad said, anytime you can add a player like Jrue Holiday, you go and do it. What was your reaction when the news broke that you guys landed Jrue, especially with the team that was built up in Milwaukee that for sure you guys will likely see in the playoffs? Just
grateful and open-minded. And, anytime you can add character and mindset, I think it's a win. And so we have that in our building. We've had that in our building, and then we've now added that into our building. And so, this isn't about like he has to come here and be anything other than who he is and make us better on both ends of the floor and then also complement everybody else. And that's kind of the theme of the season for us is like, do we have the ability to bring the best out of each other, to play team basketball, and at the same time understand that we're all going to have to sacrifice, we're all going to have to give up small bits and pieces of ourselves to get to where we want to get to, and each person's role is going to look different at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season, at the beginning of the game, at the end of the game, and it's not getting caught up in anything other than that. It is like, how do we impact winning? How does what we do have an effect on the guy next to us? And, can we create that shared ownership for a long period of time? Can we be the more physical, the more connected, the more unselfish? Every media day, every team starts out saying the same thing. Every coach is saying the same thing. Everybody's excited. Everyone feels like they got a chance, blah, blah, blah. And can you maintain that through the ebbs and flows and the variables that you come across during an NBA season?
Joe, with your new assistant coaches, have you kind of divvied out, is somebody going to be handling more offense? Is somebody going to be handling more defense? For lack of a better term, like a defensive coordinator. What are the responsibilities going to be for your assistants?
Yeah, that was a really good, first of all, credit and thanks to the staff from last year. I thought under the circumstances they did the absolute noble, loyal, best job they could at making it a great environment, for us to try to achieve a goal. And I'm happy that they, got the promotions or the situations or the roles that they wanted. One of the most fun things for me was going through the process of developing a staff and, surrounding myself around, people that can complement the players, can complement, who I am as a coach, and can also work together. And so we kind of took this approach of like tribal leadership of, communicating and working in teams of 3s and 4s instead of one-on-one. And what you can see in a lot of staff sometimes is, a head coach might build a relationship with one coach because of the way he thinks, and it could be a like-minded thought. And then you sometimes neglect someone else who's working by themselves, or you'll have 2 or 3 people working together and they're coming up with an idea, but then if it doesn't go their way, then they're kind of affected by it. And so we really wanted to, like, how could we build a shared vision? How could we build communication? How could we build ownership? And so we have like an offensive team, and then within that offensive team, each person has an individual role, and then we have a defensive team, and within that team, each person has an individual role, and the communication that they go through together is super important. And so that by the time we get to a full team meeting, we've already had a group of people argue, go over, talk about their philosophy, do what they want to do, and then it's my job to tell them no. But it's my job to listen to them. And so I think just creating that environment of that tribal leadership, that togetherness, that ownership, it's something that I'm really excited to do. And our staff has done a great job like this offseason. We came into the offseason wanting to build an environment of work ethic, an environment of teaching and developing. And I thought our staff really, our staff and our players really springboarded that environment.
Joe, how do you deal with the expectations, the championship expectations, at the same time make the leap from year 1 to year 2? And was there something you picked up or did this summer to kind of relieve some of the pressure, or to change things now that you're the permanent head coach, you're not going in, you have that security? Was there something you did differently?
I mean, well, not necessarily different, but like to answer your first question about how you handle expectations, like no one's going to have higher expectations than I have for myself and then that we have as a player. And like we know the end goal is to win a championship. That's why everybody does what they do. That's why we spend the entire season away from our families. That's why we have positive emotions, negative emotions. At the end of the day, it's like we're all trying to achieve something that's really, really hard. And so the expectations are the expectations. I always say, like, I'd rather be in a city like this that has high expectations instead of going somewhere where there are no expectations. So I coached at a level where when you lost the game, it wasn't on the bottom line and nobody cared. And that was fun. But at the end of the day, you didn't get that, just that connection. And so to me, the expectation should be there. And the second piece of, like, I didn't do anything different as much as, like, for me, I try to grow just as much of the person as I do as a coach. And I think for coaches and players, like, who you are comes out on the court. And just putting yourself in a constant environment of growth, of learning, pushing yourself to the highest of mental, physical, or emotional limits can try and simulate what it's like trying to go through an NBA season. And going through an NBA season is really difficult. It's really hard. But it's fun. And so can you simulate that in the off season?
Joe, you've used the term mindset a couple of times now. Can you kind of sum up what mindset you want your team to have?
Number one, like, we just have to be the toughest, most physical, most open-minded team. Like, to me, mindset is all about, like, how you interpret something that's happening and then how you respond to it. And like each and every situation gives you an opportunity to act a certain way. And so like we have to have a collective approach of toughness, of having that mindset and having the togetherness. All the things that every company in the world is trying to adhere to on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, it's like, what's our daily approach? And it doesn't have to be nice all the time. We don't have to be friends. I want us to be, extremely, extremely competitive, extremely, extremely tough on both ends of the floor, and extremely, extremely connected.
Marcus had been a guy who's been willing to take on leadership vocally and so forth. Who do you hope kind of fills that role? Who do you kind of envision it in? Is Holiday part of that?
Everyone's a part of it. It has to come from everybody. It's not, everyone has to communicate. It's not just on one person to communicate and everybody else not to. And I think sometimes when you get into like coaches talking about we need to communicate better, there's two pieces to that. There's like the communication piece, and then there's the reciprocal piece of like responding to the communication. And there has to be both of those things. And it's not just one person's job. So Jrue's a part of it, but so is Jason, so is Jalen, so is Al. Everybody, we have to be able to communicate verbally, non-verbally, body language. All of our emotions, we have to communicate those for us to grow as a team.
Joe, other players have talked about rebuilding that defensive identity this year. Jalen, Jason want to make all defense. You guys even played a little bit of zone in the summer league, it looked like. How do you kind of see yourself forming that defensive identity, and could you go to some of those zone looks this year?
The defensive identity just starts with the mindset. Like, you know, there was a lot of times last year where we were a great defensive team, and then there were times where we didn't make that our foundation. And so at the end of the day, you just have the proper mindset. Like, defense is what gets you in the door. Defense is the admission ticket. But it's toughness, it's mindset, it's the ability to just be physical on both ends of the floor. So you just have to do it. Like, you don't really have a choice. And that's something I can get better as a coach. I think, I was talking about this the other day. Like, when something's so obvious to me, I have a tendency to not emphasize it as much. And it's like, maybe it's because I sucked at offense, so I had to play defense. Nobody had to remind me to play defense because I couldn't do anything else. And it's like, if you want to be great, you have to play defense, and you have to be just a mother, like, on that end of the floor. But, you know, there are times where I don't always say that because it's obvious. But, you know, I think that's the thing that I learned this year is it's not that obvious. And so, you know, you just have to talk about it all the time. And defense and toughness gets you in the door.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Everybody.
I was given, I was like, oh, well, I'm not at that building right now, so.
Were you rude?
No, I said, oh, let me go talk to Amelia real quick, see what we're gonna do, and I'll have her text her. So I said. Why does he take it from me?
Doesn't trust me.
I don't know. I said he should just do it. Who's in?
If it's either me or Rob, I go, Gio had it. I found hard to believe he'll help me out. He just takes everything seriously, so I can't joke.
Why am I so needed? I'm confused.
Because you said you were taking over for me because I had to do this.
Yeah, but this is wrong. This is the whole. You don't need a photo. Call me too.
I know, I told him, I was like, that's Gio's problem. Peter. It's like, I got Kristaps, and if anybody's talking when he gets here, like, get you back. Okay, thank you.
And we're back. All right. Good morning.
Questions for Al?
Al, obviously a retooled roster. You know, Marcus, you have 4 guys gone, a couple new guys coming in. What are your feelings here at watching all the player movement and getting started with this new team?
Yeah, just a roller coaster. You know, just a lot going on, and now we can, you know, just focus on the season and put some last stuff behind. But yeah, it's been, you know, it's been a lot. You know, all this time just kind of waiting, and then, you know, at some point we thought we were done, and then obviously the news breaks yesterday, and yeah, and now that we're settled, we can, you know, now we can move forward and prepare for the season.
You were like Rob's maybe biggest fan on the team. Can you just talk about like losing him, especially last second, and then on the flip side, getting to play with a guy like Holiday?
Yeah, you know, Rob is, you know, somebody that since his rookie year, you know, I've seen him grow, and so grateful to been able to play with him, and he's such a great teammate, about the right things, trying to, you know, play the right way, super unselfish, and he's somebody that I just really enjoyed playing with. It was a lot of fun, and he's a great guy, and you know, I just obviously wish him, you know, nothing but the best, you know, moving forward, and you know, he's, you know, he is professional. I know that it's hard for him, but I know that, you know, that he'll be fine. And then, you know, having the opportunity to play with Jrue, somebody that I respect so much, and look from afar, with admiration, just the type of player that he is, the type of person that he is. He's about the right things, and he is about winning and competing. I'm really excited about that, and developing that relationship and chemistry with him, and moving forward with it. So he's somebody that, you know, I just would have never imagined to be playing next to him, but you know, now that he's here, you know, I'm excited.
Just Brad mentioned that Kristaps has been in for the last 2 weeks. Just your initial impressions on him, and how do you think you'll fit next to him and alongside him?
On Kristaps? Yeah, you know, honestly, pretty unbelievable watching him go through workouts, play. I played against him over the years and things like that, but when you really see a guy like that, he, you know, he's really 7'3", you know, like maybe even a little taller, and just the way that he moves, his feel for the game, and some of the things that he, you know, that he brings. I'm just really excited. We've been here already for a few weeks, you know, putting in work, trying to get to know each other, develop that chemistry. Very excited for what's ahead for him, because he is, you know, that player that's I feel like it's gonna have a big impact.
Al, you've said in the past you prefer to start. Is that still the case? And have you talked to Joe about how the trade might impact your role this year?
Sorry, what did you say?
You said in the past that you prefer to be in the starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still the case going into this year? And have you talked to Joe about what the role might be after the trade?
No, I mean, it's, you know, it's been a lot going on with everything. But for me, you know, we have such a special group here. We're all ready to put in the work to get started, and to put ourselves in the best position. So that's something that he has to, you know, Joe will have to address and determine but for me, I'm excited to be in this position and to have this opportunity with our team.